Coming up on Inside the FLX, a conversation with Mike Rusinko of the Salvation Army to talk about the Red Kettle campaign and its impact here in the Finger Lakes. This episode is brought to you by DeSanto Propane. They've been serving the clean energy needs of upstate New York homeowners, businesses, and home builders since 1937. With a reputation of reliability and dependability, DeSanto Propane is ready to serve you. Call 1-800-752-4574 or visit DeSantoPropane.com to learn more. And by the Fox family of dealerships located on Route 5 in Auburn. It's all there and all together at the Fox family of dealerships. Visit foxdealerships.com to learn more. Today on Inside the FLX, we are talking about the Red Kettle campaign. The holiday shopping season is here, and that means you've probably already heard the bell ringing. What many don't realize is that the bell is crucial to what the Salvation Army is able to do year-round in the community. There is a tough reality. If donations are down in any given year, local programs get cut. As Mike explains, there simply isn't a way around it. We pick up the conversation with an overview of how organizers with the Salvation Army get ready for the holiday season and learning about how bell ringers are deployed to stores and businesses around the region.
It's looking good so far, but it's a long haul. It's a long slog to get to December 24th at this point. So you are going to see more. There'll be more kettles out there, more people ringing the bell. So hopefully it'll be something that people become more and more familiar with in the next few weeks.
One of the questions that came up, just I think out of curiosity of some folks, they see the red kettles out and about. Is there a particular process for figuring out where they're going to go or how to spread them out or anything like that? Or is it sort of a get them everywhere you possibly can
I think it's art and science, Josh. Yeah. It's where has it been successful in the past? Mm-hmm. We're dealing with a community here. We're dealing with Geneva Salvation Army and just a few surrounding businesses to that. So it's a small town environment that we live in. So if you said we're the 10 busiest places, you could name them. Anybody that's listening or watching now would know that right off the top of their head. Yeah. Well, they're probably at blah, 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 blah. They've probably seen a kettle there too. But there's a mix of, we know that there are real good traffic spots, and there's also places, honestly, where people request they'd like to have a kettle there. Mm-hmm. They think it's a beneficial thing. They want that. They feel like that makes them more a part of the community. They want to help. So you have a mix of places by experience and by listening to people's requests and things like that. It's a combination. It's not specific. It's a blend of science and art, I guess.
And it's interesting. One of the things that I said off the top in the intro today was, it's almost as if hearing the bell ringing as you're walking into a store or a mall or wherever you may be, it's almost as much a part of the holiday vibe as the actual Christmas music that you're hearing once you're inside and sort of hearing, the commotion of holiday shoppers. Talk to us a little bit about the tradition of the Red Kettle campaign and how important that part is in you guys being able to leverage this every year to help give back to these communities.
I think it's something that, because the kettles are everywhere and people feel a certain comfort with them, maybe sometimes they blend into the background a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's part of, like you say, it is part of that institutional, these are all the things that happen at Christmas time. Yeah. For the Salvation Army, particularly Salvation Army in Geneva, the Kettle campaign is the principal driver of annual revenue for all the programs that we do. The Kettle campaign literally supports things like the food pantry, the Monday through Friday prepared food program, after school program. It helps us support the holiday toy campaign, the holiday food basket drive. It helps us with the Adopt a Family program. all the things that the Salvation Army does in the year. 16,000 different people get touched by one of the programs that I just mentioned, for example.
Right.
16,000 individuals. That costs money. And literally the biggest single event of the year is the money that's generated from the Kettle campaign.
And how many, so when does it start and when does it actually end? I think a lot of people tend to get a little bit surprised. It'll catch them by surprise. I guess like the holiday season does in general with a lot of folks.
Right.
You're out and about and all of a sudden you see and hear the bell and you see somebody. When do you guys actually kick off? Is it a certain date in November, or do you guys sort of play it year by year, day by day?
Well, it's the latter. It's technically the 15th. There will be some kettles out, but then as the volunteer corps ramps up, and we'll talk about that, as more people become available to stand and support the kettle and ring the bell, then you'll see more kettles show up. And it goes out and kind of expands out through the month of December, and it concludes on Christmas Eve on the 24th.
Gotcha.
That's when I ring the bell. And my friends at Geneva Rotary, my wife Carol and I, and my buddy Richard and I will be standing out in the street in Geneva on Seneca Street there at Exchange, and we'll be out ringing the bell. We do it every year.
And I guess it makes sense now to talk about that part of it, the camaraderie part of it, because it's interesting year to year if you go to different places. I live in Rochester, and it's funny, like even up there, I see certain faces and I remember them from years before, maybe not at that exact location. But how much of that is sort of pivotal to what you guys do? Having those returning bell ringers who every year make themselves available and donate their time to the cause and what you guys are trying to do.
There's such a strong link between the idea of someone supporting the Salvation Army by dropping that loose change or dropping that paper into the kettle and supporting all those programs we just talked about. That's the link. But really the leveraged gift is someone being willing to spend an hour or two ringing the bell, and really, if you think about it, encouraging all these other people to give. I mean, it's a tremendous gift when you go into your pocket coming out of a store and drop in some coins, and you do that. We all do that like several times probably during the course of the holiday season.
Yeah.
But really, if you think about it, if you could stand there for an hour, and for example, and where I work is Lions National Bank, and I work at the Canandaigua branch. And every year we take a location, and throughout the course of the day, we all spend an hour ringing the bell. Now, if we could get employers to allow that across the region, if we could get friends, groups of friends, just like that group of neighbors that you have that hang out on the patio all summer, the 10 of you or the 12 of you, if you could take a day and just ring a bell for an hour, everybody takes an hour. You're really leveraging a lot of giving over the course of the whole holiday season.
And you mentioned the ramp up in terms of the fleet of people that you guys have to work with in terms of bell ringers. At what point, I guess, as you cross past the November 15th threshold, when do you guys tend to get to full strength in terms of how many bell ringers you have and where you start to feel comfortable about being able to be all the places where you want to be?
I know if you use the phrase "get comfortable" to our captains, to Luis and Nadia Martinez, they would never use the phrase "comfortable" because it's such a involved process. It's such a moving target. There are, like you talked about, some prime locations. Well, there are days by happenstance, not for lack of trying, but there's some days where maybe we don't have a volunteer at a key location, a key retailer, a store where you know there's going to be 1,000 people walk by that day. Mm-hmm. Well, if we don't have anybody there to volunteer that day, we have to pay someone. And we do, in very limited fashion, do so. We'll pay someone to stand there. That gets the job done, but it kind of is cross purposes with being a fundraiser.
Right.
So you have that, and that's a moving target. You think you have someone lined up for a week to do mornings over at this spot, but then life ensues. They've got a sick child or something. They can't come. Well, now you've got to get some float people to move in and take a spot. So, and yeah, the worst case scenario, it's not bad, but the worst case scenario of having a volunteer to do it is to actually have to pay someone hourly for 4, 6, 8 hours to be there. Kind of works at cross purposes.
Right. And when you look at the Red Kettle campaign, what's one of the bigger misconceptions about what you guys are doing, whether that be in terms of purpose or what you guys do with the funding, or I guess even just in terms of maybe a little look behind the scenes in terms of what it takes to make it happen throughout the whole year? You're talking essentially like 45-ish days of constant work. Obviously not 24-hour work, but near 24-hour work when you consider that the time you guys are spending in scheduling people and making sure that everything is matching and lined up, right?
I think if you did a cost benefit analysis on all the time and energy that goes into it and the reliance upon volunteers that makes it happen and what you get out of it, on paper it probably looks ridiculous. It probably doesn't look good at all.
Right.
Like many things in the nonprofit world, it's born out of necessity. It's not out of design. It's just, this is what the need is. This is what the need is in the community for all these programs that are put forth and the people that are helped. So you realize this is your most ample opportunity, so you run as fast as you can. What can happen though, like we've had years where the numbers are down. You don't want to cast aspersions at the end of November here before Thanksgiving when we're putting this on tape, but we've had years where we were off 20 or 30,000 year over year. And if we're missing $30,000 from the Kettle campaign, things won't happen in the following year.
Right.
This isn't there's no miraculous creation of programs and funding, and we have a very helpful support base. We have people that donate. We have a donation campaign. We have an annual campaign that's the letters are going out. Mm-hmm. Kind of an end of year campaign, like let's face it, many other nonprofit organizations put out an appeal at the end of the year.
Yeah.
We're doing that. We did that last year. We did that because we had to maintain some of the programs that we've talked about. We actually made up some of that loss. But if we can't do that through regular donations or through business donations or people's personal support, that means that we'll have to cut back someplace, like every other place, I guess. But that's not something that anybody wants to do.
And to that end, walk us through, so I know you mentioned it briefly, but some of the programs that do happen because of the Red Kettle campaign. Not just constricted to the winter, but year-round. What are some of the things that are happening that people see in the community but may not realize that that's happening because of the donations that you guys get in November and December?
Well, let's touch on that one. Let's touch on the thing that we talked about, I think, at our last visit, that I think it's okay to preface any conversation about fundraising with, is a lot of people see the Salvation Army stores, and they assume that they're big, bright stores. There's one on Beans Hill in Geneva, next to Red Jacket. It's a tremendous place. The idea here, though, is that those stores are designed to support outpatient programs for substance abuse recovery that are set up throughout upstate New York in Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, Albany. Those stores do not support these fundraising programs in the direct local visits of Salvation Army. That's not where the money goes. The money it's deserving of where it does go. But let's just make sure that people know that we're ringing the bell, because that's where that money drives some of these fundraising activities. And it doesn't come from the stores. I think the day-to-day things that people might not see, there is a food bank program that we have Monday through Friday. People can come in and actually we have a food bank, a pantry that people are allowed to come into. You sign up for, you participate in. We have a prepared meal program After it's about 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a Monday through Friday program that goes on throughout the year, and volunteers come in and prepare meals for folks. We have right now. I think I should mention, talk about donations. We have 400 gift baskets that will be distributed, which are food and toys, which will be distributed coming up just before the holiday. That's a regular ongoing program. We just received a tremendous donation from the Enos MacDonald PBA of Geneva. The Police Benevolent Association of Geneva just made a tremendous donation to support that this year. Very appreciative of that. A great gift to the Salvation Army, and we're very appreciative of it. But literally, kids will be getting toys, families will be getting food baskets to have a holiday meal, and day to day, week to week, people come in and are fed, can be supported in their, they can request vouchers for clothing, housing, anything down to even furniture, and of course counseling and support, because the Salvation Army has a missionary responsibility as well.
Has technology made it harder, not only for you guys to solicit the donations, but then also to get people engaged in the physical sense to be ringing the bell also?
You know, I don't want to take a cynical view of that. I want to take a realistic view of that. I believe that for every advance we have in technology, we give up a little bit of attention. Let's face it. Yeah. People have, in 2019, people have multiple jobs. At their job, they probably are doing the work of at least 1.5, if not 1 or 2 people. Name somebody that you know that isn't doing the job of a couple people. Okay. That's common now. And then electronically, we're a little engaged by our social media and by our electronic toys, whether it's the phone that we are constantly staring at, or it's Alexa that we're talking to on the kitchen counter. There is a kind of an urgency, let's put it that way. I think that's true. But for every one of those instances, there's a new door that opens. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about the 2 interns that we have. We have 2 great interns doing marketing communications work for us from Hobart and William Smith colleges. It's a new program that we've just opened up this year. And they speak complete social media. Mm-hmm. We don't have an Instagram account for Salvation Army, but they speak Facebook and Twitter and website, and that's their means of communication. Yeah. It's funny, but that's how they communicate with me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think I've gotten a call from them per se, but we communicate with each other differently now as a society, and different age groups communicate differently. So if you're not really using that electronic opportunity the right way, you'll miss a lot of people. So I think you have to kind of shift gears a little bit and use electronica the way the culture is shifting. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I can't pretend to be as adept at social media as one of those 2 interns. Right. That's why we ask them to participate. Yeah. But they're fully understanding of the needs to do all the other things, to have the more traditional media contacts, news releases, talking to Finger Lakes One, writing thank you notes to donors. They're completely adept at what you and I might consider a traditional communication strategy, but they kind of understand the social media aspects of it, the quickness, the tempo that you need to move to stay in touch with things. Let's face it, that part moves faster too. And I think we've done, like I said, the door opens and the door closes. It's not like a quick yes or no answer, but we're all challenged and a little bit more distracted, let's face it. But we also are trying to communicate with people about the needs for the Salvation Army as the times change.
Well, it's interesting you frame it like that, because when you frame it like that, it sounds more like an opportunity than necessarily maybe a challenge that's hurting what you're doing. It's almost like you're opening the doors to what you guys do to a new generation, to a different generation.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. I want people that are in their teens and 20s and 30s to see that need, just like someone in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. I want them to be able to understand that, because that need hasn't changed. That's the important part of it. And I think that need, let's face it, cuts across every generation. Yeah. So I think it's been the responsibility of Geneva Salvation Army to realize that some of these conversations were just not happening. And we really, and my interest and my involvement is just to make sure that we are having the kind of conversations that we want to have, telling the story of those 16,000 people that get helped, that receive some form of support in their life, some sort of benefit, something that they need. That's not casual or accidental. That's very engaged, purposeful people at Salvation Army. So I wanted to help that conversation, and I think that's what we're working on, is to kind of make sure that everybody hears the story.
And well, okay, so I want to get into the weeds a little bit on that because I think it's interesting. We're on a digital platform where there are more obviously young people than there are older folks, I would say. That said, it seems to, when I have different people in from different agencies to talk about this sort of topic and who's getting involved and who's not getting involved and where the opportunities are, there seems to be this idea that young people aren't getting involved because they're lazy, because they have too much going on, because they have multiple jobs, and maybe different parts of those stereotypes might be true in different aspects. But it seems to be that more times than not, when you talk to young people, they don't realize that these agencies or organizations need help because they aren't getting into these platforms. They aren't getting into these arenas where the young people are. Is that something that's kind of like game changing in terms of being able to not just get that next generation the help and to get the things that you guys do into those groups of people, but also lining up the next generation of bell ringers, of volunteers, of people who are donating their time, not just for the next 5 or 10 years, but literally for the next 40, so that the Salvation Army can keep doing what it has done for so long?
I think there's many elements to that, Josh. I don't have that cynical take that young people are this or young people are that, any more than I have the same view of myself that old people are this or old people are that. I believe that if much like the Kevin Costner movie, which because it's a proper name is not coming to me, speaking of old, but if you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. Bull Durham, no. Just the same. The Kevin Costner movie about baseball. If you build it, they will come. Well, I think if you ask people, then they will respond. I believe that's one of the key things that I've always believed. If you don't ask someone for something, then it's not going to happen by osmosis. You have to have a message. And your message to someone my age is not going to be the same message as to the people that I'm trying to engage, for example, on a couple of campuses around the area. And people tell me at these campuses that we've talked to, well, we haven't heard anything about the Salvation Army. We don't even know this. Well, guess why not? No one asked. Not that you didn't ever try, but this is the old advertising knowledge kicking back from my past where you have to ask someone more than once. And making an appeal isn't just saying, oh, here's a letter. Thank you for your donation last year. Could you please send us a donation this year? Once a year. Yeah. Well, that's probably not enough in today's very crowded world of information. You're going to probably have to reach someone 3 times. Or maybe that's what they used to say. It might be more now. Yeah. So I believe that you have to ask those people generationally. You may find them in different places, and you may not speak the same language, and maybe you have to get your communications right. Maybe you have to think, how is that person hearing the message? Are they getting it on their phone? Chances are they're getting it on their phone. Yeah. So is your message, do you have a full page of text explaining everything that ever happened in your organization, or is your message more succinct and targeted because someone's reading it in a space that's literally this big? Maybe a 2-page news release is too much. Maybe you need to yes, shorten it, but think, where is someone gathering this? Think about the audience. That's guess what it comes down to. And I think we have to do that more. I think we do that in a lot of different things. I think business marketers do it. I think nonprofit marketers have to get just as savvy about doing it too.
And it's funny, before we came on here, we were talking a little bit about just how many more agencies there are now asking for different things and working through the challenges that you just outlined. But when I think of the Salvation Army and when I think of the Red Kettle campaign, I think of an organization, an agency, and an effort that really is ingrained in people's psyche in terms of what the holidays are all about. Is that an advantage for you guys, being able to call back on something? The Red Kettle campaign is something that even if you don't know specifically what it is or what it does, everybody recognizes the Red Kettle. It's that branding element. And when you think about other agencies and other organizations, is that one of those things that you look back at and say, yeah, you know what, this is important. Like having that really strong branding and really strong sort of community engagement in terms of understanding what it's all about. That's probably more important than a tagline that you can throw into something or a new idea that just came up because there's a really trendy social platform that's working right now. Rather than getting caught up in the little things, really cementing yourself as being an important item for agencies like the Salvation Army.
I think it's very important. The branding, though, I think is really the responsibility of state agencies, national agencies. I don't believe that in our instance we have the financial resources to do the kind of outreach that would establish local brand. I'm not sure that that's a reasonable expectation. I think our responsibility as a local Salvation Army is to ask for and get as much volunteer support as we can. I mean, I really think you have to, at some point you have to focus. Mm-hmm. You can't be all things to all people. At some point you have to pick the spots where you know you have the greatest need and you know you have the greatest opportunity. And there might be many other things that are worthwhile and many things that are timely. I mean, we talked about summer camp when it was summer camp time, for example, back a few months ago. But right now, this is game on.
Yeah.
So if the brand of that kettle campaign is important, then it's our responsibility to make sure that literally this is the rubber hits the road. Yeah. This is that those kettles are out there and that they're staffed. And so that's really, now it becomes a recruitment issue, I think more than a branding issue.
So over the last 30 minutes or so, we've had the number on the screen for people to call if they want to ring the bell locally in Ontario County and Geneva.
I think it's fun. I do it every year, and I enjoy the heck out of it. I really like doing it.
Now, here's the basic question that most people are going to think, but maybe not ask because they probably won't call. What's the process? How does it work? You know, if someone is sitting on their couch right now or they're sitting in their office and they're listening to this conversation, what is that process like to go from a random person to ringing the bell out in the weather over the next 30 days?
Well, you're going to reach out. You're going to find out. I'm hoping that somebody's going to be able to pick up the phone. There may be something going on right there at that moment. You might get the answering machine. That's because all the volunteers have got their hands full doing whatever they're doing right there at the Salvation Army on North Street at that moment.
Yeah.
But someone does want to talk to you. Believe me. Someone will reach out and say, are you available at a specific location? Are you available or interested in specific times, days, and how long? Or would you be willing to do this? Are you talking about a day? Are you talking about once a week for the rest of the season until Christmas Eve? People will ask you, is it just you or is it a group of friends? Do you have a coworker group? A neighbor group? Do you have a civic club or organization? How many people are we talking about? Because they're looking to fill those spots, and that's really that's the fundraising leverage that we're trying to exert right now, is to make sure that there is someone standing there and ringing that bell when people walk by.
What's the call to action then for the next? Obviously, when people are listening to this, it's Thanksgiving Day. So happy Thanksgiving. But
Happy Thanksgiving.
But also on top of that, more of that urgency. The rubber has met the road. What's the call to action over the next 3 to 4 weeks as we get into the core holiday season?
Well, I tip my hat again to the Anus McDonald PBA in Geneva for supporting the gift baskets that are going to be distributed and the toys that are going to be distributed. But really, the call to action for me is, if you're sitting and listening to this or viewing this someplace and you think, you know what, I could go ring the bell, then please call the number, and someone will find you a place and time where you can do that. I guarantee you that will happen. And stand there for an hour, stand there for 2 hours. I can't imagine standing for more than 3 or 4, but some of our volunteers do it all day. It's not easy.
That's a grind.
It's cold, and no, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But they come prepared and they do a good job. And of course, any donations that you make in this season of giving, a lot of people are asking for your donations. Your donations to the Salvation Army literally support children's meals, toys, clothes, educations, support.
The things a lot of us take for granted throughout the entire holiday season.
Couldn't have said it
Unfortunately.
better. Yep.
Mike, appreciate the time. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Josh.
Before we go, a quick reminder that new episodes are released every week on fingerlakes1.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor. You can visit InsideTheFLX.com for past episodes or to leave us a voice message. You can also drop us a line by emailing InsideTheFLX@fingerlakes1.com. Subscribe to the show wherever you are listening and become a Patreon supporter if you can. Visit www.patreon.com/FL1 to learn more. Links to all of those things are available in the show notes below. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.